It will now be necessary to return to the period of Amabel's abduction from Kingston Lisle. The shawl thrown over her head prevented her cries from being heard, and, notwithstanding her struggles, she was placed on horseback before a powerful man, who galloped off with her along the Wantage road. After proceeding at a rapid pace for about 2 miles, her conductor came to a halt, and she could distinguish the sound of other horsemen approaching. At first she hoped it might prove a rescue, but she was quickly undeceived. The shawl was removed, and she beheld the Earl of Rochester, accompanied by Pillicoddy, and some half-dozen mounted attendants. The Earl would have transferred her to his own steed, but she offered such determined resistance to the arrangement, that he was compelled to content himself with riding by her aid. All his efforts to engage her in conversation were equally unsuccessful. She made no reply to his remarks, but averted her gaze from him, and, whenever he approached, shrank from him with abhorrence. The Earl, however, was not easily repulsed, but continued his attentions and discourse, as if both had been favorably received. In this way they proceeded for some miles, one of the Earl's attendants, who was well acquainted with the country, being in fact a native of it, serving as their guide. They had quitted the Wantage road, and leaving that ancient town, renowned as the birthplace of the great Alfred, on the right, had taken the direction of Abingdon and Oxford. It was a lovely evening, and their course led them through many charming places. But the dreariest waste would have been as agreeable as the richest prospect to Amabel. She noted neither the broad meadows, yet white from the scythe, nor the cornfields waving with their deep and abundant, though yet immature crops, nor did she cast even a passing glance at any one of those green spots which every lane offers, and upon which the eye of the traveler ordinarily delights to linger. She rode beneath a natural avenue of trees, whose branches met overhead like the arches of a cathedral, and was scarcely conscious of their pleasant shade. She heard neither the song of the wooing thrush, nor the cry of the startled blackbird, nor the evening hymn of the soaring lark. Alike to her was the gorse-covered common, along which they swiftly speeded, and the steep hillside up which they more swiftly mounted. She breathed not the delicious fragrance of the new-mown hay, nor listened to the distant lowing herds, the bleating sheep, or the cawing rooks. She thought of nothing but her perilous situation, heard nothing but the voice of Rochester, felt nothing but the terror inspired by his presence. As the Earl did not desire to pass through any village, if he could help it, his guide led him along the most unfrequented roads, but in spite of his caution, an interruption occurred which had nearly resulted in Amabel's deliverance. While threading a narrow lane, they came suddenly upon a troop of haymakers, in a field on the right, who, up to that moment, had been hidden from view by the high hedges. On seeing them, Amabel screamed loudly for assistance, and was instantly answered by their shouts. Rochester ordered his men to gallop forward, but the road winding round the meadow, the haymakers were enabled to take a shorter cut and intercept them. Leaping the hedge, a stout fellow rushed towards Amabel's conductor, and seized the bridle of his steed. He was followed by 2 others, who would have instantly liberated the captive girl, if the Earl had not, with great presence of mind, cried out, "Touch her not, as you value your lives. She is ill of the plague." At this formidable announcement, which operated like magic upon Amabel's defenders, and made them fall back more quickly than the weapons of the Earl's attendants could have done, they retreated, and communicating their fears to their comrades, who were breaking through the hedge in all directions, and hurrying to their aid, the whole band took to their heels, and, regardless of Amabel's continued shrieks, never stopped till they supposed themselves out of the reach of infection. The Earl was thus at liberty to pursue his way unmolested, and laughing heartily at the success of his stratagem, and at the consternation he had created among the haymakers, pressed forward. Nothing further occurred till, in crossing the little river Rock, near Lyford, the horse ridden by Amabel's conductor missed its footing, and precipitated them both into the water. No ill consequences followed the accident. Throwing himself into the shallow stream, Rochester seized Amabel, and placed her beside him on his own steed. A deathly paleness overspread her countenance, and a convulsion shook her frame as she was thus brought into contact with the Earl, who, fearing the immersion might prove dangerous in her present delicate state of health, quickened his pace to procure assistance. Before he had proceeded 100 yards, Amabel fainted. Gazing at her with admiration, and pressing her inanimate frame to his breast, Rochester imprinted a passionate kiss on her cheek. "By my soul," he mentally ejaculated, "I never thought I could be so desperately enamored. I would not part with her for the crown of these realms." While considering whither he should take her, and much alarmed at her situation, the man who acted as guide came to his relief. Halting till the Earl came up, he said, "If you want assistance for the young lady, my lord, I can take you to a good country inn, not far from this, where she will be well attended to, and where, as it is kept by my father, I can answer that no questions will be asked." "Precisely what I wish, Sherburne," replied Rochester. "We will halt there for the night. Ride on as fast as you can." Sherburne struck spurs into his steed, and passing Kingston Bag Pews, reached the high road between Abingdon and Farringdon, at the corner of which stood the inn in question, a good-sized habitation, with large stables and a barn attached to it. Here he halted, and calling out in a loud and authoritative voice, the landlord instantly answered the summons, and, on being informed by his son of the rank of his guest, doffed his cap, and hastened to assist the Earl to dismount. But Rochester declined his services, and bidding him summon his wife, she shortly afterwards made her appearance in the shape of a stout middle-aged dame. Committing Amabel to her care, the Earl then alighted, and followed them into the house. The Plough, for so the inn was denominated, was thrown into the utmost confusion by the arrival of the Earl and his suite. All the ordinary frequenters of the inn were ejected, while the best parlour was instantly prepared for the accommodation of his lordship and Pillicoddy. But Rochester was far more anxious for Amabel than himself, and could not rest for a moment till assured by Dame Sherburne that she was restored to sensibility, and about to retire to rest. He then became easy, and sat down to supper with Pillicoddy. So elated was he by his success, that, yielding to his natural inclination for hard drinking, he continued to revel so freely and so long with his follower, that daybreak found them over their wine, the one toasting the grocer's daughter, and the other Patience, when they both staggered off to bed. A couple of hours sufficed Rochester to sleep off the effects of his carouse. At 6 o'clock he arose, and ordered his attendants to prepare to set out without delay. When all was ready, he sent for Amabel, but she refused to come downstairs, and finding his repeated messages of no avail, he rushed into her room, and bore her, shrieking, to his steed. In an hour after this, they arrived at an old hall, belonging to the Earl, in the neighbourhood of Oxford. Amabel was entrusted to the care of a female attendant, named Prudence, and towards evening, Rochester, who was burning with impatience for an interview, learnt, to his infinite disappointment, that she was so seriously unwell, that if he forced himself into her presence, her life might be placed in jeopardy. She continued in the same state for several days, at the end of which time, the chirurgeon who attended her, and who was a creature of the Earl's, pronounced her out of danger. Rochester then sent her word by Prudence that he must see her in the course of that day, and a few hours after the delivery of the message, he sought her room. She was much enfeebled by illness, but received him with great self-possession. "I cannot believe, my lord," she said, "that you desire to destroy me, and when I solemnly assure you, that if you continue to persecute me thus, my death will be the consequence, I am persuaded you will desist, and suffer me to depart." "Amabel," rejoined the Earl, passionately, "is it possible you can be so changed towards me? Nothing now interferes to prevent our union." "Except my own determination to the contrary, my lord," she replied. "I can never be yours." "Wherefore not?" asked the Earl, half angrily, half reproachfully. "Because I know and feel that I should condemn myself to wretchedness," she replied. "Because, for since your lordship will force the truth from me, I must speak out. I have learnt to regard your character in its true light, and because my heart is wedded to heaven." "Pshaw!" exclaimed the Earl, contemptuously, "you have been listening so long to your saintly father's discourses, that you fancy them applicable to yourself. But you are mistaken in me," he added, altering his tone. "I see where the main difficulty lies. You think I am about to delude you, as before, into a mock marriage. But I swear to you, you are mistaken. I love you so well that I would risk my temporal and eternal happiness for you. It will rejoice me to raise you to my own rank, to place you among the radiant beauties of our sovereign's court, the brightest of whom you will outshine, and to devote my whole life to your happiness. It is too late, sighed Amabel. Why too late? Cried the Earl, imploringly. We have gone through severe trials, it is true. I have been constantly baffled in my pursuit of you, but disappointment has only made me love you more devotedly. Why too late? What is to prevent our nuptials from taking place today, tomorrow, when you will? The king himself shall be present at the ceremony, and shall give you away. Will this satisfy your scruples? I know I have offended you. I know I deserve your anger. But the love that prompted me to act thus must also plead my pardon. Strengthen me, she murmured, looking supplicatingly upwards. Strengthen me, for my trial is very severe. Be not deceived, Amabel, continued Rochester, yet more ardently, that you love me I am well assured, however strongly you may at this moment persuade yourself to the contrary. Be not governed by your father's straight-laced and puritanical opinions. Men, such as he is, cannot judge of fiery natures like mine. I myself have had to conquer a stubborn and rebellious spirit, the demon pride. But I have conquered. Love has achieved the victory, love for you. I offer you my heart, my hand, my title. A haughty noble makes this offer to a grocer's daughter. Will you refuse me? I can and do, my lord, she replied. I have achieved a yet harder victory. With me, principle has conquered love. I no longer respect you, no longer love you, and, therefore, cannot wed you. Rash and obstinate girl, cried the Earl, unable to conceal his mortification, you will bitterly repent your inconsiderate conduct. I offer you devotion such as no other person could offer you, and rank such as no other is likely to offer you. You are now in my power, and you shall be mine, in what way rests with yourself. You shall have a week to consider the matter. At the end of that time, I will again renew my proposal. If you accept it, well and good. If not, you know the alternative. And without waiting for a reply, he quitted the room. He was as good as his word. During the whole of the week allowed Amabel for consideration, he never intruded upon her, nor was his name at any time mentioned by her attendants. If she had been, indeed, Countess of Rochester, she could not have been treated with greater respect than was shown her. The apartment allotted her opened upon a large garden, surrounded by high walls, and she walked within it daily. Her serenity of mind remained undisturbed, her health visibly improved, and, what was yet more surprising, she entirely recovered her beauty. The whole of her time not devoted to exercise was spent in reading or in prayer. On the appointed day, Rochester presented himself. She received him with the most perfect composure, and with a bland look, from which he augured favorably. He waved his hand to the attendants, and they were alone. I came for your answer, Amabel, he said, but I scarcely require it, being convinced from your looks that I have nothing to fear. Oh! Why did you not abridge this tedious interval? Why not inform me you had altered your mind? But I will not reproach you. I am too happy to complain of the delay. I must undeceive you, my lord, returned Amabel, gravely. No change has taken place in my feelings. I still adhere to the resolution I had come to when we last parted. How? Exclaimed the Earl, his countenance darkening, and the evil look which Amabel had before noticed taking possession of it. One moment lured on, and next rebuffed. But no, he added, constraining himself, you cannot mean it. It is not in woman's nature to act thus. You have loved me, you love me still. Make me happy, make yourself happy. My lord, she replied, strange and unnatural as my conduct may appear, you will find it consistent. You have lost the sway you had once over me, and, for the reasons I have already given you, I can never be yours. Oh, recall your words, Amabel, he cried, in the most moving tones he could command. If you have no regard for me, at least have compassion. I will quit the court if you desire it, will abandon title, rank, wealth, and live in the humblest station with you. You know not what I am capable of when under the dominion of passion. I am capable of the darkest crimes, or of the brightest virtues. The woman who has a man's heart in her power may mold it to her own purposes, be they good or ill. Reject me, and you drive me to despair, and plunge me into guilt. Accept me, and you may lead me into any course you please. Were I assured of this, cried Amabel. Rest assured of it, returned the Earl, passionately. Oh, yield to impulses of natural affection, and do not suffer a cold and calculating creed to chill your better feelings. How many a warm and loving heart has been so frozen? Do not let yours be one of them. Be mine. Be mine. Amabel looked at him earnestly for a moment, while he, assured that he had gained his point, could not conceal a slightly triumphant smile. Now, your answer, he cried. My life hangs upon it. I am still unmoved, she replied, coldly and firmly. Ah! Exclaimed the Earl with a terrible imprecation, and starting to his feet. You refuse me. Be it so. But think not that you shall escape me. No, you are in my power, and I will use it. You shall be mine and without the priest's interference. I will not degrade myself by an alliance with one so lowly born. The strongest love is nearest allied to hatred, and mine has become hatred, bitter hatred. You shall be mine, I tell you, and when I am indifferent to you, I will cast you off. Then, when you are neglected, despised, shunned, you will regret deeply but unavailingly your rejection of my proposals. No, my lord, I shall never regret it, replied Amabel, and I cannot sufficiently rejoice that I did not yield to the momentary weakness that inclined me to accept them. I thank you for the insight you have afforded me into your character. You have formed an erroneous opinion of me, Amabel, cried the Earl, seeing his error, and trying to correct it. I am well nigh distracted by conflicting emotions. Oh, forgive my violence, forget it. Readily, she replied, but think not I attach the least credit to your professions. Away, then, with further disguise, returned the Earl, relapsing into his furious mood, and recognize in me the person I am, or, rather the person you would have me be. You say you are immovable. So am I, nor will I further delay my purpose. Amabel, who had watched him uneasily during this speech, retreated a step, and taking a small dagger from a handkerchief in which she kept it concealed, placed its point against her breast. I well know whom I have to deal with, my lord, she said, and am, therefore, provided against the last extremity. Attempt to touch me, and I plunge this dagger into my heart. Your sense of religion will not allow you to commit so desperate a deed, replied the Earl, derisively. My blood be upon your head, my lord, she rejoined, for it is your hand that strikes the blow, and not my own. My honor is dearer to me than life, and I will unhesitatingly sacrifice the one to preserve the other. I have no fear but that the action, wrongful though it be, will be forgiven me. Hold, exclaimed the Earl, seeing from her determined look and manner that she would unquestionably execute her purpose. I have no desire to drive you to destruction. Think over what I have said to you, and we will renew the subject tomorrow. Renew it when you please, my lord, my answer will still be the same, she replied. I have but one refuge from you, the grave, and thither, if need be, I will fly. And as she spoke, she moved slowly towards the adjoining chamber, the door of which she fastened after her. "I thought I had some experience of her sex," said Rochester to himself, "but I find I was mistaken. Tomorrow's mood, however, may be unlike today's. At all events, I must take my measures differently."